I'm Phil Kershaw, and I want to ask you a question. What's the meaning of the verb to stay? In this series, we're going to take you on a staycation. Join us as we take you on a journey along the footpaths, through the fields, beside the rivers, and past the ruins in our very own local area, the Yorkshire Dales. We're going to look at what it means to stay hopeful, stay refreshed, stay active, stay focused, stay nourished, and stay firm.
What better place to start our Yorkshire Dales staycation than here on the Ilkley Moor? I walked up today, the rock formations, the moor sheep, the gorgeous view. What better place to explore what it means to stay hopeful? When my family first moved to South Africa a few years ago, moved from South Africa to England, one of the things that we had to get used to was how often it rains. As the estate agent handed us the keys in Ilkley, she said to us, well, there is a benefit. It's always so green. Green grass is something special. I realized that in a new way when we left a tent up in our backyard for a little too long and ended up with a muddy garden for months. Now you've heard the phrase, the grass is always greener. You can finish it on the other side. I know you've heard the phrase before, but I wonder if you have ever lived it. I know I have. I've been on picnics where I was so busy trying to find the most lush, gorgeous place to sit that all the spots got taken and we ended up on thorny ground. And on a deeper level, there have been times in my life when I was envious of other people because their circumstances seemed so much better than mine, only to find out later that they had struggles that I knew nothing about. And furthermore, for every moment that I spent focusing on what they have and forgetting what I already have, I was robbing myself of contentment, robbing myself of joy. When we compare ourselves to others, we set ourselves against an impossible measure, and we lose the opportunity to explore our own potential, our own strengths, to come to terms with our own weaknesses, so that we can get help from others and live together in community. When we compare our lives, the grass beneath our feet, with our future life and how we hope things might be once we've achieved that goal or met that person or reached that age, well, we miss out on the opportunity to embrace and seize life as we have it right before us in the here and now. And when we compare our lives now, the grass we stand on, to the grass we stood on before in the past, at some other time in our life, we miss out on the joy of what's happening. We miss out on the opportunity to move forward. And so as I was walking up Cow and Calf today on Ilkley Moor, thinking about the sheep that walked past, I was thinking about those sheep on Ilkley Moor. They're pretty well known for doing what they need to find some greener grass for themselves. If you've ever driven over the tops of Ilkley, you've probably had your heart stopped when you had to stop for a sheep. Why did the sheep cross the road? It crossed to help us to slow down and enjoy the view. In an article on a BBC website in 2004, there was a Yorkshire village up in arms because the moor sheep were coming down into the farmers' pastures to eat their lush grass. Apparently, they had even taught themselves to literally lie down and roll over the cattle grids to make their way onto the fields they wanted to access. Now, I haven't fact-checked that, and I don't know if it's true, but I can send you the link if you want it. Those sheep would do anything to get to greener grass. And in that case, the grass on the other side really is greener. The sheep of the Yorkshire Dales, well, they have boundary walls, those stunning stone walls. They have the food that they need, the water that they need. They're moved around to graze in different places. Their health is taken care of. Their well-being is looked after. Those sheep, they have a shepherd. Amanda Owens, also known as the Yorkshire Shepherdess, she tells a story from early in her experience working on a farm, where a farmer had sent his sheep off to stay in another farm during the winter. And as the sheep had stayed on that farm, they discovered at some point in February that they had been without a shepherd since December. When she arrived on that farm, she was shocked. The scene was horrific. There was electric wires to keep the sheep in place, but they had not been moved to graze. The ground was bare. They were starving. They were skin and bone. I heard another story once, told to me by Angus. Now, if you've ever come to Shift in person, you've probably met Angus. You almost certainly know him. And Angus, a retired head teacher, excellent gardener, bearer of any power tools my husband might need, and storyteller extraordinaire. He tells the story of a time when the north of England was not green at all, it was white. The snow had fallen, heaped up, far taller than I am. And he tells the story of how helicopters would hover over the fields, and wherever they saw a gap, they would drop a bale of hay so that the animals standing there would have access to food. How incredible the lengths that a shepherd would go to. If you think the lengths that a Yorkshire sheep goes to get some green grass rolling over a cattle grid, if that's impressive, the pathways and the lengths that a shepherd will take to feed their flock is even more amazing. Now, I wonder if you can relate in any way to those sheep that the shepherdess came across in the field, to those sheep trapped in the snow. I wonder if you have ever felt like the limits that enclose you are not safe and gentle boundaries, but harsh conditions that limit and hold you stuck and oppress you, electric fences to keep you in a place where you don't want to be. And I wonder today if you're hungry. Not physically hungry necessarily, but starving inside for affirmation, or for human touch, or for laughter. Hungry for meaningful conversation, or time alone, or rest. Hungry for a friend. I wonder if you've ever felt like you're lost on the moors. No home base, no security, no gate, no shepherd. Now, Shift meets in a church in Berlin Wharfdale. That doesn't mean that Shift is only for people who go to church. We believe that the spiritual side of life is for everyone. It's what we're all about at Shift. But if you have ever been in a church, it's very likely that somewhere along the way you've heard these words. The Lord is my shepherd. I have everything I need. He leads me to green pastures. Those are powerful words. And I've had times in my life when I have felt like a lost lamb. Something different set me off each time. There were times when I was scared that we wouldn't have enough to get by. Times that I lost people that I love, when relationships fell apart. There have been so many times that I let myself down. There's always been a different reason to make me feel scattered or sad or confused, not sure of my next step. But whatever the reason or the cause, it was always the same voice that called me out of it. A quiet voice. No, a silent voice. A silent voice, and yet I know it. I know that voice deep in my heart. And that voice gives me new hope every time I hear it. That voice calls my name. That voice comes from my shepherd. Sheep will do almost anything to get to the greener grass. And the problem is that sheep don't always know which grass is the greenest or what fields are good for them. Looks can be deceiving. Comparisons can distort things. Distractions can pull them away from safety, and that's how they end up lost. And so when Jesus wanted to tell a story about the human tendency to chase after everything but the one thing we need, no wonder he tells a story about a sheep that got lost. But it's not a story about the stupidity of the sheep or judgment for getting lost. This is a story about the shepherd who will do whatever it takes to follow any pathway, to find that sheep, to pick it up in his arms, to carry that sheep home, to bring that sheep to the good green grass. And so I don't know if you have something that you're hungry for in your life, but I do know that there is grass waiting for all of us, good spiritual food that we need in a time like this. And it might not always be what we expected. Sometimes it's in the most difficult circumstances that we're ready to even accept it. Last year, the residents of Ilkley looked on in horror as fires raged the beautiful moors. But by springtime, as you walked on those moors, you could see the green grass coming up through the ground. We learned a lesson that sometimes the most beautiful green fields spring up after the fires. And that spiritual food you're hungry for, maybe sometimes it will be like a bale of hay dropped right in the center of the terror of your coldest moment. And so I don't know what form it will take when the shepherd responds to you and when the shepherd next responds to me. But I do believe that he will do whatever it takes to find us every time, to lift us in his arms, to give us new hope, and to carry us home.
Higher than the mountains that I face, stronger than the power of the grave, constant in the trial and the change. One thing remains. One thing remains. Your love never fails, it never gives up, never runs out on me. Your love never fails, it never gives up, never runs out on me. Your love never fails, it never gives up, never runs out on me. Your love. On and on and on and on it goes. It overwhelms and satisfies my soul. And I never ever have to be afraid. One thing remains. One thing remains. Your love never fails, it never gives up, never runs out on me. Your love never fails, it never gives up, never runs out on me. Your love never fails, it never gives up, never runs out on me. Your love. In death, in life, I'm confident and covered by the power of your great love. My debt is paid, there's nothing that can separate my heart from your great love. Your love never fails, it never gives up, never runs out on me. Your love never fails, it never gives up, never runs out on me. Your love never fails, it never gives up, it never